Whitikahu School in the community, we'd like to support the idea that
Okay, we seem to have completely lost Mr. Harper.
I know there's power cuts out that way. So I don't know if that's something to do with it, but yeah, because it's affected our place.
Let's just give him a second to try and log on again.
He's back.
He's back, okay.
I'll admit him now.
Thank you. Mr. Harper, I'm afraid we only got the first sentence, so welcome back.
Yeah, few rural internet technical issues there. So yeah, we'd like to support the idea of a 40k zone in our in front of our school. I think the idea was that all rural schools, particularly rural schools, will get a 40k zone from Monday to Friday. It's very much needed in front of our school. We have a growing community. Our role again has gone up from the last time I spoke to the council, and we've got a lot of lifestyle blocks going into our area. We have a high volume of trucks that access the quarry, and that is supposed to increase. So we can have anywhere between 800 and 1,000 trucks going past when they come past empty and then go back again full. And our car park at pickup and drop off times in particular is very full. And then if our road has that reduction to 40, it just makes it for a safer environment. And also in conjunction with the footpath that we campaigned for last year and put a proposal for, a 40k speed zone supports the safety of our students accessing that resource that the community is going to create, or that the council is going to create. And I produced, I hope that will come through, a shared screen to support where our board and community feel would be a good location for 40k signs. So I will try to bring that up now. So I hope you have access to, you can see the map.
We can see that.
So what you're seeing here is Whitikahu School, our hall, and the blue strip there would be the pathway that was approved in the long-term plan last year. The 70k zone signs are on the outliers here. Where we thought would be a recommended spot for perhaps a 40k signage would be in this spot here. So traffic has the opportunity to reduce their speed before they get to the hall, which is quite well used, where the footpath would be. And then again, from the traffic that comes in this direction, 40Ks, there's quite a gradient here where you can't see the school. It's somewhat hidden. It's not just a nice straight road. So again, it gives that opportunity for speed reduction. And again, in previous research that we've done when we had our speed zone investigated, speed creep can be a little bit of an issue. So where we've got 70, cars will slow down to 70 and maybe really hover between 70 and 80. So if it's 40, they're going to get down to a safe speed, even if it's somewhat between 40 and 50, just with rural speed creep. So I'm hoping that somewhere within the zone, if this 40k proposal goes ahead, that it falls within those perimeters. This section of the road here is where our roadside parking is, and then we have a main car park and our bus. Again, we have cars backing over the road to go in either direction. It can be hard in mouth stuff every morning and afternoon. So 40 Ks would just be ideal for that, where people can already have slowed down and have got a really good view of the traffic and cars and children that are in our car park. Our only other thought, we weren't too sure if we get the 40 Ks Monday to Friday, is there a time frame during those days that the 40 K zone would be enforced?
Okay, so I do have a couple of people who've got questions for you, but maybe Mr. Bellamy can answer just that question specifically.
Thank you. Look, if I understand this correctly, the school zone extension is to incorporate the school hall.
Yeah.
Okay. Probably the complexities around that would be the frequency of the hall use with this and the school. But I do understand your point about the activities there and the inclusion on that. So we're looking to consider that extension in the deliberations.
And the hours of operation of the 40 K zone would be what, Gareth? 8:30 to 3:30?
Is that what you're after?
Yeah. We're mindful that our busiest peak times of the day with cars coming and going in terms of accessing our school car park, our pickup, drop off and buses between 8 and 9, and then between 3 and 4 we also have secondary school buses using our side of our road during that time where they do their pickup drop off. So if there was hours of operation, an 8 till 4 period would be really ideal.
Okay, we'll take a note of that. Mayor Allen, you have a question?
Yeah,
the times at the moment are being considered.
Sorry, Gareth.
Potentially an extra 30 minutes, but part of the overall timeframes of that variable are being considered at the moment from all the submissions we received.
Thanks, Gareth. Mayor Allen.
Okay, Gareth finished. Okay, afternoon, yes. Brett. Oh no, it's still morning. Morning, Brett. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you.
Yeah. Hey, look, you can take your screen down if you want to.
Yeah.
Okay, so my very question is, and I think you may have already asked it, so I think the proposal that might have gone out suggested a reduction of speed down, but sort of between 8 and 3 in the afternoon. But some schools are suggesting, and I think a lot of people are through the submissions are suggesting it should only be the hours that you've actually suggested between 8 and 9. And 3 and 4, because you've already got a reduced speed through there now. That's down to 70 currently, isn't it?
Yeah, so it stands at 70, and it's exactly like you say that we would still support if we've got flashing signs that show kids, so to let you know that there's a school there. If they were even 40 that we could advertise during those peak times and promote that, we would still be very much happy with that. So it is to keep the speed limit reduced at those most congested times. And then, yeah, the rest of the time that the 70 K zone would still suffice. So yeah, some signage for those peak times would still work for us.
Yeah, what we're trying to do is get consistency across the whole district. So there'd be dare I say it, I hate the term one size fits all, but if we're going to run a 40 K in front of all schools between 8 and 9 and 3 and 4, it needs to run that way. So you're supportive of that approach to it.
Yeah.
And thank you, Mayor Allen.
Understanding of that collective approach.
Councillor Rea, we've only got a few seconds left.
removing my hand because the question has just been answered.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, most of my questions have been asked and answered, but just thanks, Brett, for the presentation. But I don't know how schools work these days, but you say between 3 and 4 p.m. as a closing time. Do they still do it on, like, when you have weekdays, you finish early, like 2:30, etc.?
Nah. The kids would love that, but weekday half-day lunches or shortened days, they're not. No, they're not a thing anymore. Yeah.
Oh, no. Okay, that must have been way back.
Yeah, if anything, it's worse because we have after-school care that operates next to the school. We have after-school care that goes till 5:30, and that's still a class of 20.
Yeah,
so the school day is exaggerated instead of shortened.
Yeah.
You're a hard taskmaster, Mr. Harper.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for your submission. Thank you for taking the time to do it, and we really appreciate it.
Yeah, I know how busy you are. Thank you very much.
No, thank you. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Leah Fry, submitter 2680, and her submission is on page 83.
Hello. Oh, not on yet.
Yes.
Hello, Ms. Fry. You're on mute. If you would unmute yourself, that would be helpful.
There we go. Kia ora.
There you go, indeed. Thank you for your submission. We have read it. So the next 10 minutes are all yours, and that includes questions. Thank you. Off you go.
All right, cool. Thank you. I'm going to start. I'm going to take you north, take you up to Tikahonga. And the proposal is to drop the speed around Tikahonga Primary School to 60 k's. We absolutely, as a community, agree with that. We've got to look after our children. But maybe we can put a few more engineering controls around that. Perhaps it's only during school hours. Perhaps there's other engineering controls we can put up, such as the ones where they flash your speed at you as you approach, so you can actually see what speed you're doing. So more than just changing a sign, basically, to try and encourage some compliance around that. Moving on, going into Port Waikato, there was the submission that we put the whole of the village down to 40 kilometres. Again, I just want to reiterate to you that there's absolutely no compliance enforcement at Port Waikato. There's no police, there's no speed cameras, there is nothing to encourage you to actually obey the speed signs. I think what you really need to do there to reduce the speeds is look at engineering controls, and probably the easiest would be speed humps. Like many parts of our beautiful country, we have those rat bags on their motocross bikes who like to hoon around at ungodly speeds with no helmets and at all hours. We also have out-of-towners that like to come in and have drag races down Warnsall Road because they know there's never going to be any police. The same with Maraito Bay Road down in front of the bay. There's no police, so changing a sign is not going to make any difference, but a speed hump is well and truly going to slow them down. That would have to be throughout the village, though, those controls. It wouldn't just work having one or two. They would have to be on every road of the, about 6 roads in total. The other thing that I heard is that NZTA are taking advantage of this to push through for about the 3rd or 4th time, changing the speed on the Port Waikato Tuakau Bridge Road to 80 k's. So that's not really in line with consultation if they're trying to push it in through the back door. But we've been through this about 3 times now. The community has voiced their dissatisfaction with the idea of reducing the speed limit through there. The engineering controls that have been put in, the yellow lines that we have, a lot of yellow lines up there now, have certainly made a difference. As a senior firefighter and OIC of our brigade for about the last 11 years, I can tell you that there's definitely a drop in MVAs on our road or motor vehicle accidents. Those that do happen now, it's bad driving. It's people under the influence of drugs and alcohol. It's really not a speed related issue. But you could look at more engineering controls on the Port Road as well. You know, keep the fog lines going, maybe put up some reflectors, things like that. Maybe, you know, cat's eyes, the ones that make the noise when you ride over them. Maybe some engineering controls might be better than just dropping the speed limit on a road that has no enforcement. And that's what I've got for you. Any questions?
I'm sorry, Councillor Eyre.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you so much for your submission, Leah. Hey, we've heard earlier this morning of the reduction in around schools, supported more specifically around the drop-off and pick-up times. How do you feel that would work in Tikahonga? Do you believe there's a need to actually have it throughout the whole period of the school opening hours, or more so opening, closing?
Yeah, definitely opening and closing. That's just when the buses are coming through, the school buses. They've got their bus stop out the front. So, you know, they're off the road to pick up the kids, but, you know, it is still a very busy area just at that pick up and drop off time. The rest of the time, during the day, there's no kids out. You never see them.
Thank you.
Councillor Church.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So thanks, Leah, for your submission. So is this your personal submission or ratepayers submission?
It's from the Port Waikato Residents and Ratepayers Association. We discussed it at a meeting, what we wanted our joint submission to be. And this is what we would be happy with.
Okay.
On behalf of our community.
Right. Okay. That just gives us perspective. The other thing you just mentioned in your verbal, you said 40 k's throughout the whole of Port Waikato. So can you frame up for me what that looks like for you, please?
Well, in the submission, it talked about from the bridge at the creek, which takes you into the village itself. But, you know, the port actually starts way before that. The first corner when you enter Port Waikato, where the houses begin, has been dropped in the last year or so down to 60 k's, which is fantastic because there's a lot of people that live along that beachfront or the road front, including children. But I think that it should be lower from there, because as you get a couple of 100 metres down the road from that 60k point, you're still looking at, that's where the wharf is, that's where the dairy is, that's where all the kids are hanging out to jump off the wharf or swim in the river. So I think even though we did drop it to 60 from that point, I think it should be lower from that point, just to try and protect our community members a bit better. And then once we cross that bridge to go into the port, basically all those port roads, they've all got people walking down them to go to the beach, children, animals, elderly. You might say to yourself, well, that's not one of the main roads, but you've still got those boy races on their motorbikes and drag cars heading down those roads as well, because they know that they're quiet and they're straight. So, yeah, to my mind, right from the start where that 60k sign is, right throughout the village.
Cool. The last part of that, we've had a submission from Port Waikato on Maraito Bay, because that's the zone for the road being the road in Maraito Bay itself, where the Christmas parade is, to be 40 k's. Their submission is it should be 20. Can you want to give some resident ratepayer feedback on that?
Well, again, there's no point changing a sign. It's irrelevant. You know, nobody pays any attention when you know full stop, there's never going to be any enforcement. We've got bollards put up there on the right-hand side, which people have pulled out. And again, there's still no enforcement for that. We've run council ring the police when they've done it so that they can all drive in around the car parks. There's no enforcement even for that. So there's going to be even less for someone going over a sign. So again, I just come back to engineering controls. They're the only thing that's going to slow people down. Those guys on their dirt bikes, you know, they're idiots. They actually can't ride very well. So they don't go on the grass and they don't go in the dunes. They go up and down that road. So the only thing that's going to slow them down is an engineering control, such as speed humps.
Okay, so
Councillor Church, I'm going to stop you there. You've had 3 questions and move to Mayor Allen.
Hi, Leah, how are you?
Good, thanks, Alan.
Yeah, hey, look, great to get a good submission from you, but I think what you've actually highlighted is more not about putting signs up and restricting speeds, because we all know that won't work in that community. Is it more around enforcement?
No, it's about engineering controls.
Yeah, but you still need enforcement, because when I drove into port the other day, as I always see, is people on motorbikes, including quads, not registered, everything around it. And, you know, council can't deal with that sort of thing. They're very much enforcement. We could put speed bumps, but it's still an enforcement issue primarily.
It's both, right? So no one's going to pay attention to a sign. They will pay attention to a policeman. We all know how their resources are looking. Pretty sad.
Yeah.
But, you know, unless you want to completely screw up your car, you're going to slow down for a speed hump, aren't you?
Fair enough. Yep, you will do. Thanks, Leah.
Councillor Leah.
Thank you for allowing another question. Just what you say about the speed humps, I wonder, particularly in regard to those on those bikes, those motorised bikes, do you think that they might take evasive action over the speed humps and go up over the footpaths?
They're not that good a rider.
And then it might make it even more unsafe. I'm just thinking that, you know, that risky behaviour that they engage in, will a speed hump actually halt that behaviour altogether, or will they take more evasive action that could result in more dangerous, potentially, up on the footpath?
I don't think they will. I've never seen any of them on a footpath yet, and I don't think they have the smarts to figure that out. So what we want them to think is they've taken all the fun out of this, because, you know, they can't go racing down a footpath. It's too narrow. They're going to kill themselves. But they can go racing down a road because they're nice and wide. But we want them to think this is too bloody hard. Let's go out in the dunes where they're actually supposed to be.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fry. You've really demonstrated how useful it is to have local knowledge. So thank you for taking the time to submit. It's really, really appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. See you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Jodie.
Our next speaker is submitter 2819, David Miller, and you'll find his submission on page 38.
Hello, Mr. Miller. We can see you, but you're on mute. So if you care to unmute yourself. We've read your submission. Thank you very much for taking the time to put it in, and the next 10 minutes are all yours.
Well, no problem. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to you. I must admit, I saw the invitation shared on Facebook by one of the councillors, and obviously was having a quiet weekend and had a bit of a rush of blood to the head and decided to fill it out, which I'd never done before. Yeah, clearly I clicked on the would like to speak to it thing and immediately regretted it. But here we are.
Good on you.
So, look, for me, I think some of my concerns were probably a little bit alleviated and addressed by the last couple of speakers I've just been listening to. I primarily concerned around the Te Kauwhara and Te Kauwhai areas that are being raised in the bylaws here. I don't live in either of those communities, but I live fairly close to Te Kauwhara and have a lot of family in Te Kauwhai, and so I frequent those areas. Our local school has the controlled speed restrictions around the school hours, in the morning and then again in the afternoon. We've found that works extremely well for our area. I think that's probably a better fit in my mind for the likes of the Te Kauwhara and Te Whara areas, particularly Te Kauwhai. As I say, I have a lot of family there. I've got 3 children myself. They walk around those roads as they are now and have never had any incidents, never had any concerns about speeding cars, things like that. So I guess some control around the start of school day and the end of school day, I think, is probably, in hindsight, a prudent idea. I don't think it's necessarily all day. And part of that flows into some of what the previous lady spoke about is the control and enforcement. And unless you've got someone there policing it, then is there actually going to be any change of behaviour? Unfortunately, I think our police force do a wonderful job on the limited budget they have. Do we really want to create more work for them? I think, for my mind, the bigger issue is perhaps a infrastructure issue here. Maybe some more footpaths around some of these areas gets people off and away from the road. There's less issues with pedestrians and that there then. I know it's not necessarily a quick fix, and it does create more cost for the council. But hey, as a ratepayer, I'm all for having money spent on people's safety. I do have concerns around how that money's spent. I think it's very easy to go for the cheapest quote from a contractor. But obviously, if you put your contractor's hat on, there's an incentive to do a shoddy job, because then you can come back and do the repairs later. As a ratepayer, I'd love to. I wouldn't say I'd love to. I would be. I could cope with spending more on rates if it meant getting quality job done by contractors. But I guess that's probably a chat for another day. I think the wholesale changes of limiting these speeds, particularly like to Kofi, to around 40 kilometres all day, 24/7, I think is unnecessarily, and to be honest, people will get frustrated and ignore it. I think, some limited times you would get far more compliance. We have flashing lights at our local school saying that it's a 40k zone, and then at the other end it picks back up again, and we get far better compliance than we did when it was just a limited 60k zone all year round.
We have a couple of questions. If you're
please fire away. I'd love to fill up my 10 minutes with someone else talking.
You've done very well, and congratulations on that. Councillor Smith.
Yeah, well, thank you firstly for taking the time to follow through with your submission. As someone who represents the Te Kofi community, are you aware of 2 B-train rollovers outside the school and spilling the contents into the school? And secondly, a fatal matter accident on the corner by the garage less than 100 metres from the school. And if you're not, what are your thoughts about Te Kofi now?
Well, my thoughts of Te Kofi haven't changed. I love the place.
sorry, speed was a factor in all 3 cases.
Speed, okay. I wasn't aware of any of those, I'm afraid. As I don't live in the community, I do visit it. I find it hard to understand how a B train could roll over at 50 kilometres an hour on those roads. I'm not an engineer. I'm not a traffic investigator. I am a farmer, born and bred. Slightly jealous of the Hereford standing behind you. But I really, from someone who does operate heavy machinery, I would struggle to see how you could roll a B train on those roads at 50 kilometres an hour. So I would assume that they were going more than 50, and therefore, if the speed limit was 40, I don't know that it'd make a great deal of difference if they already aren't obeying the speed.
Point taken. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for Mr. Miller? Councillor Maguire. You're on mute, Councillor Maguire.
David, you'd like it to stick around the 60, would you?
No, not necessarily. I think I pulled 60 out because my local community in Mangatangi, past their school, is a 60 kilometre zone. But around that pick up and drop off time of the day, we have a temporary speed limit of 40 kilometres. That works very, very well for us. I wouldn't suggest, I think by memory, Te Kofi is a 50 kilometre zone. I'm not suggesting that we raise that to 60 and then drop it to 40 around school time. I would think leave the speed limit the way they are now and create a temporary speed limit around those pick up and drop off zones for children. I've got 3 children, 2 teenagers and an intermediate age child. Believe me, I'm all for keeping children safe on the sides of the roads. I have a nephew that attends Te Kowhai School. I really don't want to hear that he's been run over.
Thank you, David.
No problem. Thank you.
Mr. Bellamy, did you have a comment?
Yes, David, thank you again for your submission. We do have a number of childcare centres located very close to Te Kowhai School, for instance, which their operating sort of times, pick-up, drop-offs are slightly different to the mainstream school. What would be your thoughts on how we incorporate those childcare centres which have got equal sort of activity like the school, but a much broader time frame?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, one of those childcare centres is actually only 100, 200 metres away from my mother and father-in-law's, so I know it well. I would think it's a great opportunity for the council to liaise with those groups and work out what peak time flows would suit them. Clearly a one-size-fits-all cookie cutter approach, which was mentioned before, is not necessarily going to work for everyone. But it may be that there's a happy medium with those individuals. I've never had kids at those play centres, preschools. I would suggest it would be best to talk with them.
Thank you. Look, thank you, Mr. Miller. I hope this wasn't the scary thing that kept you awake all night. I do welcome you to the world of submissions and hearings, and I can assure you that this sort of information is really helpful and helps all the councillors build up the picture by which they make a decision. So I want to thank you again for doing this.
Thank you for being gentle.
Hope it hasn't ruined your life for you.
Not at all, not at all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is submitter 2875, Manihira Forbes, and you'll find his submission on page 79.
Kia ora, it's Manihira here.
Oh, Mr. Forbes, hello and welcome. Thank you for your submission. It's a very interesting one. We have all read it, but you have the next 10 minutes to give us the highlights of it and answer any questions.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
So I understand I need to share my screen. Is that right? Yep. So I'll start. So I guess primarily my submission is in support of what is being proposed, but also to request that more is done, particularly for our Māori communities. So just a second while I figure out how to do this. Here, let me start here. So can you see that picture
yes,
there?
We've got that. We've got that.
Okay, great. Okay, so the 2 communities I want to discuss with you is around Waikere Marae in Ngaro Wahia and Riria Kiriopa Memorial Drive in Whaingaroa. So starting with the Waikere Marae, this is a picture of a corner on a 100-kilometre road directly targeting a papakainga that adjoins the marae there. This is a dangerous area where cars do go off the road. They slide on the corner, then about 3 houses down go into that property. And so in terms of the road safety proposals, I don't understand why more isn't being done for our Māori communities such as this one. This is that's pretty much the query, and I think significant more work needs to be done to support those whare. You can see how close they are to the road. And if I can go to the next picture, I don't know how this is. Okay, that's not really working. That's what I would have liked. Let me try and go to the next picture. Oh, you can just see a little bit more. Oh, can you see that firstly?
Yep. Yes,
Yep.
we can see it.
So you get more of a feel as you come around the corner, and then the marae is just a bit further down. So
And the speed on that road is what?
100 kilometers an hour.
Thank you.
Madam
Can you
Chair,
see that picture of the marae now?
Yes.
Madam
Yeah,
Chair, can I just advise that this, on your right-hand side, the second power pole is the entrance to my property. So I'm not sure I've got a conflict here, but I'll just advise that that is directly opposite my driveway.
Thank you, Councillor Smith.
And so there you can see the marae itself. And so when there's events on here, and Councillor Smith will be able to attest to this, there's parking all along the road there, in that road corridor. And you know, so say for a tangi or any marae gatherings of where people are turning up in numbers, you know, it's a significant hazard when you've got vehicles going up and down this road at 100 kilometers an hour. There's often children walking along the road, and yeah, I'm really mindful of this, and I don't understand why more isn't being done for this community. So I better carry on now to Rīria Kiriopa Memorial Drive. So this is the road as you come down Rīria Kiriopa Memorial Drive, and as it turns the corner, and then you come along the beachfront there. Councillor Thompson will be familiar with this. This isn't one of the busy days. This is a summer day, but you have parking all along this corner.
We are still looking at your marae.
Okay. Let me try and figure that out. Thanks for letting me know. Try and this one. Oh, this isn't the one I was. Okay, can you see that picture?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So you have people, so you have cars on both sides, and you have people, there's a campground just further up the road. So you have people walking along the road. You have people parking the car there, where you can see the tires actually in the road, and people hopping out into the road. Now the issue is this is a 40k road where you have cars coming around this corner directly into vehicle traffic and people hopping in and out of vehicles. You also have there's a good buffer here, but you have because there's always the council shower on the toilets here. There's no stormwater or mitigation, so all the water just drains off here, and so you have people walking along the road because they don't want to walk in the wet. So the issue is you particularly get out of towners that they get all excited, they're nearly at the beach and they just speed up. They don't follow the 40k rule. And talking with the whānau here, what's actually required is some speed humps, some actual physical mechanism to slow vehicles down. Now I'll need to change the picture. Can you see that picture? It's a different picture. Oh, maybe
not yet.
No. Okay, just a second. Oh, just quickly. Again, that's that same corner. So you've got a car going. You've got a car going off. You've got a person standing in the road trying to get into their car. Yeah, it's just super dangerous. And you know, there's Māori land on the other side of this road. With community, you know, in our Kokiri Centre here, our Urupa here, you've got, this is a high activity area and it's just super unsafe. So there's one more picture I want to share. And so this is looking further along the road on the other side of the toilet box. This where all these cars park, this is road corridor, but also a road. This is a Papakainga reserve. This is a reserve with council for the purpose of the Papakainga on the other side of the road. So you have people going back and forward across this road from our papakainga here and all along the road front. And you can see from the road angle, you lose visibility. As cars come along here, it's not easy to see going around this corner. It's lower. And so we have children going back and forward across here, but you have cars that are speeding, the same scenario. They just get excited, they're at the beach and they're speeding, but their awareness of the situation with the kite surfers and the wing foilers going back and forward across this road, because they all unpack on the grass berm, it's super dangerous. You have people walking behind all the cars on the road, and it's a high activity area, but the speed limit of 40, I understand it's potentially going to get reduced to 20, but you still need a physical mechanism of a speed hump to reduce traffic further.
Mr. Forbes, we've got quite a few questions for you. Are you happy to take those now?
Yep.
So bearing in mind that we have a very little time left, can you keep your questions short? Councillor Henderson.
Thank you. Regarding Marais and speed limits outside of those on 100k roads, would you like to see them all reduced?
I think a proper assessment of the activity, and just along with all the other proposals, that it should be considered in the same light. You've got a papakainga, you've got a marae. What is required there? I sort of can't believe it's still at 100, given all this other awesome work that's been done to reduce speed limits and make areas safer.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Kia ora, Manihira, nice to see you. With regard to Rere Kiriopa Memorial Drive, I can attest to the fact that particularly recently, in 2020 when we went into lockdown, how busy it has been there. So would you support the reduction of the speed from 40 to 20 k's in that area, and the possibility of some, if it's speed humps or, being able to slow that traffic down even further?
Yeah, 100%. Reduce that speed, and I think a physical mechanism is required for those out-of-towners that just get excited. I should also add, Te Kōpua and 2B3 Incorporation has asked my submission be on their behalf as well. And they are the Māori landowner in that area.
And do you think, Manihira, where the first picture was on the Rere Kiriopa Memorial Drive, where the station is for the dump the wastewater treatment station down there across from the toilets, would there be of any benefit to put a yellow line down there to stop people from parking on that side, just to reduce, when people come around the corner, they're opening their car doors, people are crossing the road? Do you think that would be of any help?
Yeah, that's a great idea. We do have the problem of shortage of parking, and we do get cars parking on both sides of the road. But I think particularly for that corner, that would be a really good idea.
Okay, Kapai, thank you.
Councillor Smith, very, very short question, please.
Thank you. Are you aware of the work that was done between the Marae Committee and myself with NZTA when this particular stretch outside Waikiri was part of State Highway 39, insofar as the southern side or the left-hand side in those photos was the drain, open drain was closed in, covered, and a gravel footpath, which I might add is not being maintained by the District Council at all, was put in, and the assessment that was done by NZTA at the time, it was a state highway, that says that it does not qualify for a speed restriction because of the very short nature, with the only 6 houses there, although there are 15 papakainga sites for eventual increase in housing. So are you aware of that work that was done?
I have been in communication with people living in that area, but specifically to the NZTA assessment and the open drain and footpath, no.
No, okay.
Thank you.
I'll take this offline and with Mr. Bellamy.
Thank you. Mr. Forbes, thank you very much. It was a delight to hear your presentation, and I think it's unfair that you showed photographs of the beach on a day like this.
Kia ora, ngā mihi kia koutou.
Thank you very much.
Our next speaker is Jackie Swain, submitter 2919, and her submission is on page 27.
Hello, Ms. Swain. Welcome to the hearing, and I see that you're ready to go. We have read your submission, and we're delighted that you've put one in. So next 10 minutes is all yours.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity today to be able to be heard by yourselves. My name is Jackie and I live at 124 Waitatuna Valley Road. And so we're located opposite the entrance to the Waitatuna School. And our lifestyle block is on the corner. So if you're coming from Old Mountain Road, then the junction is opposite our section. If you're coming along the Waitatuna Valley Road, then obviously our house faces Waitatuna Valley Road. And I just wanted to give you the idea of where we lived, because we have a really good view of both Waitatuna Valley Road and the Old Mountain Road. And we've lived here now for just over 6 years. So we also are familiar with if there's an accident on State Highway 23 and the traffic is rerouted, as it frequently is along Waitatuna Valley Road and the Old Mountain Road, then we can see obviously the increase in volume in traffic when that happens. Also, I was working in Hamilton until June last year, and now I work from home. So I've also noticed the difference between me doing the daily commute to Hamilton from Waitatuna Valley, where I used to leave around about 7 to 7:15 in the morning and return about 6 at night, between 5:30 and 6 at night. And then being at home and obviously hearing the traffic throughout the day from the time I get up in the morning, which is usually about 6:30, to when I go to bed at night. And the reason I'm saying that is because I became particularly concerned when I was commuting to Hamilton, and it would be winter, and often it would be, as I said, around about between 7 and 7:30 in the morning, thereabouts. And I would see children, high school children, walking to school along the Waitatuna Valley Road, and probably they'd come from the Old Mountain Road in order to get the school bus to take them into Hamilton. And the concern for me was there's lots of twists on the Waitatuna Valley Road. It's quite a windy road, but there's no pedestrian footpath. And so at that time of the morning in the winter, it isn't light enough to be able to, for visibility to be clear if children are walking. And I saw a few, on several occasions where obviously my speed, I was being cautious. I've got grown-up children and grandchildren myself, so I was being very cautious, anticipating that there might be a child walking as I turned a corner, but I could see the potential for severe risk with there not being a pedestrian footpath. And at the time, the speed limit being greater, it was 80 k's at the time. Even now that it's 60, obviously, that's still a high speed limit if you're turning a corner, and I see cars frequently going fast around those corners, and it just particularly concerns me because of knowing that there's pedestrians. Also, obviously, there's pedestrians. I have a dog myself, and I would love to be able to safely walk my dog. That becomes problematic as well, because if you're wanting to go out and get exercise and just walk around your neighbourhood and be neighbourly and take the dog for a walk, it causes concern. And it's been, I've had many occasions where I've stopped to talk to neighbours, only to have obviously metal trucks or logging trucks or the milk trucks come by, and always I will try and step as far as I can towards a hedge, but with no pedestrian footpath, it's a big risk. That brings me on as well to the fact that each of those roads, and I don't know if this is the case for all country roads, but each of those roads is used frequently by logging trucks. I hear, now that I'm working from home, I hear logging trucks frequently throughout the day, and it isn't uncommon to hear maybe 3 logging trucks in a row again, between the hours of sort of like 7 and 8 in the morning when children are going to school. I hear logging trucks frequently. I hear metal trucks as well. So I think there must be a quarry out near Te Pāhu, perhaps. There's metal trucks frequently travelling along that road too. And obviously there's the Fonterra milk trucks as well. And my concern around that is, we all know that, you know, it can take up to 40% longer for a heavy truck like that to stop as it would a car, if there was another car or a child or a pedestrian that they needed to stop for. Obviously, generally, the heavier the truck, the longer it takes to stop, and the effects of speed on stopping distance is obviously prevalent, particularly when you're approaching a junction or you're travelling outside of a school. And so they're my reasons. I was concerned about it before, but now that I'm working from home and I'm hearing, and in fairness, some of the trucks I do hear slow down as they approach the corner. But I think for many, and my concern about only having the reduced speed at certain times of the day is, for many, they will only see it as a window of children going to school and children coming back from school, when actually that window is much wider when you've got high school children walking to a bus stop early in the morning in order to get an early bus. It's not just that sort of hour before and around starting school and finishing school. It's a lot longer than that. So thank you for giving me this opportunity. I wanted just to bring to your attention, if you didn't already know, just this isn't just a lovely little rural village that has cars. It has so many heavy, very heavy vehicles that move through it, and even at the weekends at times as well. So yeah, I just felt that we needed to see that bigger picture, really, rather than just the short time perhaps before or after school.
And that's really helpful. Thank you for the local knowledge input. That's the sort of stuff we need. Councillor Thompson, you have a question.
Oh, kia ora. Thank you, Madam Chair. Kia ora, Jackie. Thank you very much for your submission and for speaking to it this morning. I just had a question with regard to if you could have a wish list of having the footpath. Would you have it from Waitatuna School to where the bus stop is just before State Highway 23? Or what would your vision be for that for your community?
Definitely my vision would be from the Waitatuna Valley School to State Highway 23. And in addition, it would be from probably the turnoff from Waitatuna Valley School down Old Mountain Road, past the footbridge and along that road as well. Because so often I've seen on the Facebook page, we've got a Waitatuna Valley Facebook page where unfortunately the bridge across Old Mountain Road across the river narrows, so it's not as wide as the road. It just takes one car, and it's impossible for a pedestrian or a child on a bike. And we do have quite a lot of children that ride bikes to school, and particularly around that time when they're doing their cycling proficiency. It's impossible for them to be able to be on that bridge at the same time as a car. And sadly, cars don't always stop for pedestrians, and I've seen that myself. So to have some sort of footpath, particularly if it couldn't go, I mean, obviously I know that might be a little bit difficult when you've got a bridge, but at least leading up to the bridge and past the bridge for children as well.
Good, thank you.
Please.
Thank you. There are no more questions. Ms. Swain, thank you very, very much for taking the time to do this. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for your time. Goodbye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Grace submitter ID 2948, and her submission is on page 46.
Good morning, ma'am. You're on mute, so if you would unmute yourself. We've got your submission, we've read it, and we would love to hear from you. So the next 10 minutes are all yours. If you just unmute yourself, thank you.
So is that for me? Hello?
Yes, it is.
Hi.
Yes, it is. Thank you. And like I said, we've read your submission. Thank you very much. So you've got 10 minutes and we'd love to hear from you.
Okay, so with my submission, I just wanted to touch base from being in the Tuakau community. I just felt that a lot of people tend to complain, but they never submit. I think the issue that I have is just the speed limit within the township, and I don't think I put it in there, so I do apologize, but I just needed to come and just say that the speed limit within George Street, because my daughter nearly got run over yesterday. She's 10, she goes to Tuakau Primary, she goes to the Tuakau Youth Centre. And I just feel that if we could just reduce that speed where the crossing is, and also the crossing at the school, because the cars are going too fast. I was walking behind her and 3 other children, and when we went to cross, the cars were just going too fast. So luckily I just had to call them back. And I just feel that living in the country area, yes, we are prone to open roads and faster speeds, but I just feel that where there's residential or where there's the speed just needs to come down. That's my only, sorry.
Thank you. Are there any questions? I think you've made a very clear submission, and thank you for I'm sorry to hear about your daughter, but thank you very much for that. Councillor Church.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, thanks, Grace. Your name up there says Grace at Tuakau Union Parish. So it's good that you've got your submission. Thank you for that about speed. But also maybe, is there anything like you've heard from, because you run a charity shop, a charity op shop, and so you see a lot of people through your charity op shop. Can you think of anything anecdotal that people talk to you about around speed around Tuakau that might be helpful?
The thing is that it's the behind the scenes streets, if you get what I mean. It's not the main streets that everybody's talking about. It's the ones behind where they just go over the 50 speed limit, especially like, because from George Street you can cut into Medill, through Carr Street, through to Wangaratta, all the way down. They're going at about 60 to 80. And that's the sort of fear that my elderlies are having at the moment, because they have to come through, like, we're not on the main street, we're in the back. So where the police station is, the elderlies have to either cut through the back of George Street to come through to us. And even on St. Stephen's Road, they're not going at 50, they're going really fast. So I think it's just, there's a lot of things that I may not have put in, and I'm so sorry, but it was just the time limit that I had to just quickly get my submission in before the close down. Because running an op shop, running the church, it's not easy. But I'm just thankful that you guys had taken time out to read my submission.
Thank you. You make good points, and I assure you we do read everybody's submission, and it's really helpful when you do find the moment to take the time to do it. So thank you for that. There are no more questions, I believe. So thank you, Grace.
Thank you so much, and keep up the good work you all do. Thank you
very much.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Thank you.
Our next speaker is submitter 2958, Stephen Pohl, submission page number 28 and 29.
Mr. Paul, we can see that you're trying to connect to audio, so I'm not even sure that you're hearing this. Oh, you have. Good. That must be the magic words.
He's still muted, Madam Chair.
No, here it is now. Mr. Paul, we can see you, and now you've unmuted yourself, we can hear you. Thank you very much for your submission and welcome, and the next 10 minutes are all yours.
Thank you. I'd just like to say something about the speed of the vehicles that pass through Pocono and Great South Roads. We're one of the houses that are just on the outskirts going out towards the southern motorway towards Hamilton, and we find that the vehicles seem to be speeding. I don't have obviously a radar camera, but yeah, the thing is, as you go out of the 50 zone, there's a 100 km/h speed limit signboard just before the sharp corner, which then shows 45 km/h on a recommended speed board. So it's impossible to achieve 100 km/h because you have to slow down for the sharp corner, go underneath the bridge, and then another sharp curve to the right, and then onto the southern motorway. So I just thought that if the 100 km/h signboard wasn't there, then at least people wouldn't be, maybe some of them, I'm not saying everybody, some people would think that they have to be achieving 100 km/h when they hit the board, the signboard right next to it, in line with it. Rather if that was taken away and either kept a 50 zone or something lower, because you have to, it's impossible to go 100 km/h around these bends underneath the bridge to get onto the southern motorway. That's why there's already a 45 km/h recommended speed board there. And some people do seem to be speeding when they're coming into Pocono from the Hamilton side, but I think the main problem is going out, which is on the side where our house is. There's a lot of other houses too, and just past us is the Queen's Redoubt. And then after that turn off is a few more businesses, which you turn into a driveway, which is the veterinarian, and there's other places as well. So, and there's pedestrians all the time. A lot of people go for walks and take their dogs, and they're moving around all the time. And I just feel like, this is a major hazard, and someone's going to get hurt, if not worse. I hope it isn't worse than that. Yeah.
Okay, that's yeah, I can visualize exactly where you're talking about, and so thank you for that. Are there any questions for Mr. Pole? Councillor Eyre.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you very much for your submission, Stephen. I certainly understand and appreciate your concern, but from my point of view, I live in a rural western district with speed limit on country roads of 100. Now, clearly we're not capable or able to safely go around many of these cordons at 100 kilometres, but there is good driver discretion in getting around them. Would you have it then in some of these rural roads where corners may, you may be required to reduce your speed to 50 kilometres, would you have it that those rural roads all go down to 50k?
I understand what you're saying, and I thought that this might come up. What I'm trying to say is also this is a town. It's changed. There's a lot of people. There's obviously a new area and everything, but we're still in the old part of the town. And I mean, does it not then matter that people are just speeding through the town or something? Is that acceptable? Or must we all just accept that and just try? I mean, what happens if a little child runs out into the road? Do we deal with it then to see what happens then? Or are we going to try and stop these kind of things, prevent them from happening?
So the point that you make is in regard to that specific portion of the road, not in general. Just that road where...
Yes, we're at 26 Great South Road, now just past us, or even just in line with us, you get the Queen's Readout, and then you get this 100 km/h zone, which I would like to invite someone to try and, from where they see the 100 km/h zone, put their foot down and see if they can get 100 km/h before they get to a few meters ahead of them, which the signboard says 45 km/h, which you have to go in order to take the bends to go underneath the bridge to get onto the Southern Motorway Slipway.
Yeah, I can visualise where you mean exactly. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Church.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks, Stephen. Yeah, it's really good to get that clarity. I guess I'm just really flagging it really for Gareth. Gareth's aware of it. He's seen photographs in the past. But I think it's what His Worship said, that this is NZTA, because it's that 100 kilometre as part of the motorway signage. And maybe we can just flag it as part of a discourse with them as to clarifying that if we feel it's confusing. It may not be in our perimeter, so I'm just not sure, Gareth, and we can talk about it later, perhaps in deliberations. But I think it's an NZTA information sign at 100k. Is that correct, Gareth?
Question to me. So there is the boundary to the designation, I think, finishes at the stream. So, or just thereafter. So there is an opportunity for us to relocate the signage a little bit further south. And then answer to the question regarding sort of the indicator of 100, we are through the district, we're putting up the de-restriction sign, which basically is saying, you know, the speed limit's 100, however, you've got to drive to conditions and the road geometry, and that's our modus going forward. So where there's an opportunity for us to extend that 50 a little bit further south to our limit, and then just change the sign to de-restriction, which means, you know, just drive to the geometry in the road.
Right. Thanks for that clarity.
Thank you. Pardon me. Thank you, Councillor Church. Mr. Poll, there's no more questions for you, but I think you made your point very clearly, and thank you very much for taking the time to do so. We welcome your submission. Thank you.
Thank you very much for listening to me. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Right.
Jodie, you're back online again. Good.
Okay, and time for our next speaker, submitter 2978, which is Sharon Rakina, and her submission is on page 30.
I'm sorry, everybody, if you can hear that, it's a fire siren. And it's determined not to be muted.
What might have been our dinner bell?
Sorry about that.
Just as long as you don't have to go up with the firemen.
No, but they do a marvellous job. I'm so grateful to them. We also have all the local dogs joining in with their response to the fire siren. Ms. Rakina, we can see that you're trying to connect to audio, so we'll just wait until you get that hooked up.
There's definitely something about a siren like that that elicits a faster heartbeat.
It does indeed. Ms. Rakina, we can see you. Can you hear us? No, not yet. Ms. Rakina. Ms. Rakina, are you ready?
It didn't show. It didn't show, Madam Chair, the audio had connected. It came up.
No, and I'm thinking she's not. Okay.
Madam Chair, I can try putting her back in the waiting room and getting her to rejoin. Sometimes that works.
If you would, thank you.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Yeah, hey, look, I know this is the last submitter before lunch. I have to pop out. I've got chorus down the driveway trying to find fibre optic cable at the moment, so I told him I'd come back in 20 minutes. So I'll just catch up with you all after lunch.
Okay, thank you. Jody, while we're waiting, can you tell me if Mr. Moore, who was due at 11:40, is he now not attending?
I haven't heard from him, so I'm assuming not attending. And then you'll see that Derek Tate isn't either. So that's it for lunch.
Thank you. Lunch. Yeah, thank you. Hello, Ms. Rakina, can you hear us? Ms. Rakina? I think you may still be on mute, or that your microphone is not working because we can't hear you.
She's got someone with her there by the looks of it.
Yeah. I'm afraid we can't hear. We can see you, but we can't hear you. So we're not getting any audio feed from you. Galen, is there another way around this that we can assist?
The only other way is to put her back in the waiting room, but
it looks like you have somebody helping her.
Yeah. No, Jody, I can't control her settings.
I'm sorry, councillors, we need to be patient here for a few minutes, if you don't mind.
Excuse me, Madam Chair, is somebody able to actually phone her on a landline to step her through it?
Jody has been stepping her through it, Councillor.
Oh.
And now she's connected.
Great. Ms. Rakina, if you can take your mute off, we would be able to hear you.
Okay, is that it?
That is perfect. Well done. Well done. You've beaten technology. Fantastic. Thank you for persevering. We've received your submission. We have all read it, but you've got 10 minutes to tell us what's really bothering you about that. So all yours.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. So we've been in our home now for 5 years. It's been my grandmother's home since 1959. In the time that we've been here as a whānau and with my grandmother, the community itself has grown. So what I'm saying is that in our road between, there's a road called Mangawhero Road, and to carry on down to the main road, State Highway, there are now at least, well, there's on the one side of the Mangawhero stream, there's 13 houses, 7 on one side, and 12 houses, 7 on one side and 5 on the other, including our marae. On our side, come across the Mangawhero stream to our side, there's 13 houses between us and including now a cul-de-sac with at least 12 houses that in that cul-de-sac. The speed limit in most of these houses now are family homes, so we have a lot of children in these homes, and the speed limit on our road is 70 k's, which allows the speed to go up to 80, and in many times they're way past the 80. Included, so right beside our house is a small country bridge that we've seen over the 5 years. We've seen a tractor collide with the bridge and 3 car collisions, 3 separate car collisions. I myself have 7 mokopuna live with me. Another one of our friends down the road has 5. So that in 2 houses, that's 12 children that live on this road. We really are concerned about the speed of this traffic. So also scattered amongst our homes is a cement factory and a stockyard and a car wreckers. Especially the stock carrying trucks really speed past our homes on empty lanes. They just go for it, you know. But at the same time, they probably are doing the legal limit of 70 k's, but because they're so huge, they look really threatening. We just can't allow our children to even walk to school or walk down the road to the playground or anything. It's very, you know, we really would like to know if you would at least consider the speed limit on our road, because we are becoming quite a built up area.
Can you just remind me of what road it is that you're on, please?
Oh, yes, I'm in Otira Road in Otorohanga, which is a really long road. It goes for miles out into the country. But the stretch that I'm concerned about is our built-up stretch, which is from Mangawhero Road down to the main highway.
So I'm thinking that you're actually out of our district. Would I be correct in that?
No, we are. By the time it gets down to our part of Otira Road, we are nearly in the town, the town itself. Oh, district, I don't know what you mean.
Mr. Bellamy, can you help me with that?
Yeah, this is outside our district. I was just trying to search where the location was, and I realised that this is outside our district and Otorohanga Township. Am I correct, Sharon? Did I hear you correct? Is that just near the Otorohanga Township where you reside? The name of the road? Yes, that's outside our district.
Oh my goodness.
It's very helpful, but I would urge you perhaps to put your submission into your local council, because it's out of our remit to make any decisions on other council speed limits.
Right. When I approached the council, they I'm sure I was told that they weren't responsible. But I will try again. So try the local council. All right.
Thank you. But thank you for persevering as well with your. Now you will be a Zoom expert.
I can do the Zoom now.
Yes. There you go.
Madam Chair, can we just get the address to absolutely confirm that it is outside our district, please?
Sure. What is your address, Ms. Rakina?
Number 48, Otewa Road.
O-T-E-W-A.
O-T-E-W-A. No, O-T, yes. O-T-E-W-A, yes. Otewa Road.
Thank you.
Okay.
Gareth, can you confirm that? It's still not in our district?
I can confirm Otewa is not in our district. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Rakina. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Well, it was an exciting finish to the morning, just to keep your minds working. So that is the end of this morning. We've got a resuming at 1:30. So if you can be back and ready and refuel for the afternoon. Councillor Beck, did you have a comment? Remembering that we are still recording.
Yes, thank you. I'm well aware of that. Yes, actually, this last submission answered a question for me. I thought I was being somewhat mentally sluggish in reading through these 135 pages of submissions, because quite often a submitter, as is the current one, would say, I've lived here for 15 years and my local road, etc.
Yes.
Because we don't have addresses in the submission summary that we've received, actually, unless the submitter says, and this is my road, actually, I'd have to say a good number of these submissions, we don't know where they are, and that's going to pose a problem for our deliberations.
We will double check on those. But I did notice, actually, I did mark this one as one that it didn't mention the road. I think all of the others had at least some slight clue at the beginning. Councillor Eyre.
I think, Madam Chair, with a little looking through that lens, I think you'll find that there's probably as many as a quarter or a third that don't give any indication as to location.
Okay. Okay. Councillor Eyre, did you have a comment?
Yeah, no, I just agree with that point, but also just in respect to some detail about the Leah Fry's submission, we're receiving the names of the submitters, but not necessarily who they're actually who they're representing, because she was actually for residents and ratepayers. So I note that we've had a bit of a change of format in how we receive these. Once upon a time, we would have actually received all the submissions with their detail themselves, but now it sort of seems to be more of a summarised version, and I wonder if that is working well for us.
Remembering that we get many of these online, so we're not getting the attachments that we would have got on many of the submissions previously.
But in previous hearings in our Dropbox, we still would have received all of the submissions, not summaries.
Want to make a comment there?
Yeah, so through the chair, Councillor Eyre is quite right. In the rep reviews and the LTP and everything, and if you notice the dog bylaw hearings, they've actually got those submissions set out like we used to do and everything like that, rather than the Easter trading policy and this one have that summarised. Well, it's not a summarised table, it is everything that they've put in. The staff have only taken out things where people have been swearing or anything like that were inappropriate to go on an agenda. So this is a different format that we're utilising, and I have talked to corporate planning about that, and that's why the dogs have gone back to the layout of before, but we will still redact addresses. So from those forms.
I wonder.
You should go, Councillor Beck.
I wonder, Madam Chair, then if the redaction of addresses is the advised way to go, and this means more work for staff, but whether they could be at least in a ward type order, or by the addresses, staff will know when they say, I'm a local and ... at least to say, which map, for example, they submitted on or are likely to have submitted on in terms of what our proposal was, because at the moment it's some of these are reasonably blind.
Yeah, good point.
Madam Chair, I just wonder, it seems to be a unilateral decision by staff to redact the addresses. I don't see that as a council policy, and if council wants them, I don't have a problem with receiving them in a separate form as opposed to a public document. But to make unilateral decisions that removes information that we can validate the submission is not, in my view, something that's desirable. So if we take this offline rather than this public meeting, I think we need to have a discussion as to what councillors want as opposed to what we're told we want. And that's not a slight on anybody at the moment.
No, good point. I mean, the usefulness of these is that with everyone we learn. We've had a good learning here, and I think it will just help us to improve, but good points raised all around. So there's nobody else wishes to speak. We can now break and come back to start at 1:30. So just same